June 4, 1941. A single encrypted radio transmission intercepts at a listening station in suburban Maryland. 327 characters, Enigma machine cipher, transmission duration 47 seconds. The message contains coordinates for a Nazi spy network operating in New York City, intelligence that will prevent the sabotage of 14 American merchant ships carrying war materials to Britain. Within 18 hours, a 48-year-old woman decodes the message using nothing but frequency analysis, pattern recognition, and a depth of cryptographic knowledge that surpasses every male analyst in U.S. intelligence. Her name is Elizebeth Smith Friedman. By the end, you'll see how she broke 4,000 enemy messages, dismantled Nazi espionage networks across 3 continents, pioneered techniques that laid the groundwork for modern cryptography, and how the FBI erased her name from every report, paid her nothing in recognition, and threatened her with prosecution if she ever revealed the truth. But first, the small-town girl with a Shakespeare obsession who accidentally became the most dangerous weapon the Allies never acknowledged. Elizebeth Smith grows up in Huntington, Indiana, population 15,000, where her father runs a Quaker bank and considers college for women unnecessary extravagance. She defies him, works as a substitute teacher to save $200, enrolls at Hillsdale College in Michigan in 1910, graduates in 1915 with a degree in English literature specializing in Shakespeare. No interest in espionage, no training in mathematics, just an obsessive fascination with linguistic patterns and Elizabethan ciphers embedded in Shakespeare's first folio. In June 1916, she visits the Newberry Library in Chicago researching Shakespeare, where she meets George Fabian, an eccentric textile millionaire who believes Francis Bacon wrote Shakespeare's plays using secret codes. Fabian offers her $150 per month, double a teacher's salary, to live at his private research estate Riverbank Laboratories, and help prove his Bacon theory through cryptanalysis. She accepts, thinking it's a summer job analyzing Renaissance literature. Instead, within 6 months, the U.S. government realizes Fabian's estate houses the only working cryptanalysis laboratory in America. And when World War I erupts, Elizebeth Smith finds herself decoding German spy messages despite having zero formal training and being paid less than the male researchers who couldn't solve the ciphers she cracked in hours. Riverbank Laboratories sits on 500 acres outside Geneva, Illinois, a bizarre compound featuring a lighthouse 50 miles from any ocean, a private zoo with bears and monkeys, Roman-style gardens, and most importantly, a soundproof cottage where Elizabeth and 7 other researchers work 14-hour days on cryptanalysis. There are no textbooks, modern cryptography doesn't exist yet, no university courses, no training manuals. They invent the science from scratch. Elizabeth develops frequency analysis techniques by hand-counting letter occurrences in 200-page German messages, discovers pattern recognition methods that won't be formalized for another 30 years, creates the first systematic approach to breaking polyalphabetic ciphers. She works alongside William Friedman, another cryptanalyst at Riverbank, who she marries in 1917. They become history's first cryptographic power couple. When America enters World War I in April 1917, the U.S. Army and Navy realize they have 0 codebreakers and no intelligence infrastructure. They send Elizabeth 87 intercepted German messages. She breaks them all within 3 months, identifying spy rings, supply routes, and sabotage plans. The military is so impressed they classify her work top secret and immediately begin taking credit for breakthroughs she achieves. A pattern that will define her entire career and erase her from history, while men receive medals for work she performed. 1931. Prohibition is failing because smugglers use encrypted radio communications the Treasury Department can't break. The Coast Guard hires Elizabeth, now 39 years old with a decade of freelance cryptanalysis experience, to intercept and decode bootlegger messages. She identifies 23 smuggling ships in the first month, leading to seizures worth $12 million in today's money. But then, the Coast Guard notices something disturbing in the traffic. German language transmissions using military-grade codes far more sophisticated than rum runners would possess. Elizabeth traces the signals to Nazi intelligence networks using the Western Hemisphere as a staging ground for espionage operations. She alerts the FBI. J. Edgar Hoover recognizes the value immediately, but not Elizabeth's. Hoover wants the FBI to be America's premier counterintelligence agency, which means taking credit for all cryptographic breakthroughs, while keeping the actual codebreaker hidden. He strikes a deal. The Coast Guard loans Elizabeth to the FBI for intelligence work, but all operational reports will list FBI agents as the source of decoded intelligence. Elizabeth's name will appear nowhere. She agrees because she's a patriot, and because in 1931, women have zero negotiating power against the FBI director. For the next 14 years, Elizebeth Smith Friedman will break Nazi codes that expose spy rings in Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, and across the United States. And J. Edgar Hoover will personally sign his name to reports describing her work as if he performed the analysis himself. Here's what most people don't know about Enigma machines. Germany had multiple types. The famous military Enigma that Bletchley Park broke gets all the attention. But Nazi intelligence services used commercial Enigma variants with different rotor settings for spy networks. The Abwehr, German military intelligence, equips agents in South America with modified Enigma Type D machines to communicate with Berlin. These machines generate 150,274,137,250 possible cipher combinations. British intelligence at Bletchley focuses on military Enigma used by U-boats and Wehrmacht. American intelligence largely ignores South American traffic, considering it low priority, until Elizabeth intercepts a message in December 1939 that makes her blood freeze. The decrypt reveals Nazi agents mapping U.S. Navy ship movements from Panama Canal observation posts, photographing fortifications at Pearl Harbor, and recruiting American nationals for sabotage operations on the West Coast. She takes the intelligence to the FBI. They classify it immediately and begin arrests. FBI press releases credit brilliant FBI cryptanalysts with the breakthrough. Elizabeth's name appears nowhere, not in classified reports, not in congressional briefings, not even in internal FBI memos. They simply list the decoded information as coming from technical sources. And the most infuriating part, she can't complain, because under the Espionage Act, revealing classified information, including revealing that she performed the work FBI agents are taking credit for, carries a 10-year prison sentence. January 1942. 1 month after Pearl Harbor, Nazi intelligence operates what British MI6 calls the most sophisticated espionage network in the Western Hemisphere. 48 agents across Argentina, Brazil, Chile, and Peru, equipped with shortwave radios, Enigma machines, and direct communication links to Berlin. The network's commander is a German businessman named Johannes Siegfried Becker, operating from Buenos Aires under cover of running an import-export firm. His agents transmit 300 encrypted messages monthly containing intelligence on Allied shipping routes, aircraft production figures, and military technology transfers. The FBI knows the network exists, but can't break the codes. British intelligence can't break them. They're variants of commercial Enigma that use non-standard rotor positions change daily at irregular intervals. Elizabeth receives 87 intercepted messages from the network in February 1942. She identifies a critical mistake. One agent in Chile reuses the same rotor starting position 3 times in 5 days because he's lazy or poorly trained. That's all she needs. By analyzing the 3 messages with identical starting positions, she reverse engineers the rotor settings, builds a paper-based decryption table, and within 6 weeks breaks the entire network's cipher system. The decoded messages reveal 14 German agents in the United States, sabotage plans for the Panama Canal, and lists of American military personnel being recruited as double agents. The FBI conducts 48 arrests across 7 countries. J. Edgar Hoover holds a press conference taking full credit, describing FBI cryptanalytic excellence that led to the breakthrough. When Elizabeth watches the newsreel at a local theater, she laughs bitterly, because Hoover mispronounces polyalphabetic during his technical explanation. Let's examine what made Elizabeth's work revolutionary, not just breaking codes, but inventing the science of modern cryptanalysis. In 1938, she publishes a classified manual for the Coast Guard titled Methods for the Solution of Running Key Ciphers, 178 pages of mathematical techniques for attacking polyalphabetic substitution ciphers. The manual becomes required reading at every Allied intelligence agency. British codebreakers at Bletchley Park reference her methods. Soviet intelligence acquires a copy through espionage. The manual describes frequency analysis techniques that won't appear in academic cryptography literature for another 40 years. She pioneers what modern cryptographers call index of coincidence, a mathematical measurement that determines whether a cipher uses single or multiple alphabets. She develops cribs, predicted plaintext phrases that help unlock unknown cipher keys, a technique that becomes central to all Enigma decryption. She masters 12 different cipher systems, including Playfair, Visionaire, columnar transposition, and fractionating ciphers. Between 1939 and 1945, she personally decodes 4,019 enemy messages, more than any other Allied cryptanalyst, except those working on military Enigma at Bletchley Park. She identifies and helps dismantle 23 Nazi spy networks. She testifies in 14 espionage trials, always listed in court documents as Coast Guard Technical Consultant, never Cryptanalyst. She receives 0 military decorations, 0 civilian honors. Her salary in 1945, $3,200 annually, $52,000 in today's money, less than entry-level FBI agents earn. Meanwhile, male military cryptanalysts receive Legion of Merit medals, promotions to colonel, and post-war careers as university professors and corporate executives. When the war ends, the FBI classifies all records of her work for the next 75 years, ensuring her contributions remain buried in archives where historians will never find them. At least, that's what they think. June 1944. The FBI arrests Velvely Dickinson, a 50-year-old New York doll shop owner, on charges of espionage. Dickinson had been sending innocent-looking letters to colleagues in South America discussing doll orders. Except Elizabeth's decryption reveals the doll descriptions are actually encoded reports on U.S. Navy Pacific Fleet movements. I have a lovely new Japanese doll means Japanese carrier spotted at Pearl Harbor. The doll with the broken arm needs repair means damaged cruiser in San Francisco dock for 2 weeks. Dickinson sent 47 letters between 1941 and 1944 containing intelligence that helped Japanese submarines target American warships. The FBI presents Elizabeth's decryption work as evidence at trial. The prosecutor stands before the jury and states, FBI cryptanalysts worked tirelessly to break these codes. Elizabeth sits in the gallery watching a male FBI agent take credit for her work under oath. Dickinson receives 10 years in federal prison. The case makes national headlines. Life magazine runs a feature, FBI Codebreakers Crack Spy Ring. The article includes a photograph of 3 male FBI agents, none of whom performed any cryptanalysis, examining documents. Elizabeth's name appears nowhere in the article, the trial transcripts, or FBI press releases. When her daughter asks why she's not mentioned, Elizabeth responds, "I signed papers saying I'd never discuss my work. Your father and I could go to prison if anyone learns what I really do." So she stays silent, watching other people receive credit, knowing that revealing the truth means prosecution under the Espionage Act, and wondering how many more spy cases she'll solve before the war ends and her contributions are buried forever in classified archives. March 1943. Elizabeth decodes a message from a German agent in Panama City that stops her heart. Detailed maps of Miraflores locks on the Panama Canal, guard schedules for the Gatun Dam, and a timeline for simultaneous explosive sabotage targeting 3 critical points that would drain Gatun Lake and render the canal inoperable for an estimated 18 months. The Panama Canal is the single most strategically vital choke point in the Allied supply chain. It allows the U.S. Navy to move warships between Atlantic and Pacific theaters in 8 hours instead of 60 days around Cape Horn. Closing it would effectively cut the U.S. Pacific Fleet off from resupply, forcing a defensive posture in the Pacific War that could give Japan 12 to 18 months to consolidate territorial gains. The decoded message identifies the sabotage team. 7 German agents already in position in Panama, explosives smuggled in through a corrupt Panamanian customs official. Attack date scheduled for April 15, 1943. Elizabeth forwards the intelligence to the FBI. Within 72 hours, FBI agents and U.S. Army counterintelligence arrest all 7 agents, seize 400 pounds of TNT hidden in a warehouse near Cologne, and prevent what would have been the most damaging act of sabotage on American soil during World War II. The FBI press release credits anonymous sources and brilliant FBI investigative work. No mention of signals intelligence, no mention of cryptanalysis, no mention of Elizabeth. President Roosevelt sends a personal letter to J. Edgar Hoover commending the FBI's outstanding counterintelligence work. Hoover frames the letter in his office. Elizabeth receives nothing. No acknowledgement, no commendation, not even a classified memo thanking her for preventing a strategic catastrophe that could have extended the Pacific War by more than a year. Here's why Elizabeth's erasure isn't just about institutional credit stealing. It's systemic sexism codified in federal policy. In 1942, the U.S. Civil Service Commission establishes salary grade classifications for cryptanalysts. Men with college degrees start at grade GS9, annual salary $3,800. WOMENWIT, HIDENTICALQUALIFICATIONSANDEXPERIENCEST, ARTATGRADEGS, 5, ANNUALSALARY 3800. Women with identical qualifications and experience to start at grade GS5, annual salary $2,200, 42% less pay for the same work. The justification in official documents: women are temporary wartime employees who will return to domestic duties post-war, therefore, career advancement is unnecessary. Elizabeth has 25 years of cryptanalytic experience in 1942, more than any male cryptanalyst in federal service. She holds the equivalent expertise of a colonel or Navy captain. Her civil service grade, GS7, salary $3,200. MALECRYPT, ANALYSTSSHETRAINS, WHOSOLVECIPHERSUSINGTECHNIQUESSHEINVENTEDRECEIVEGS, 11CLASSIFICATIONSANDSALARIESOF 3200. Mal cryptanalysts she trains, who solve ciphers using techniques Scheinvented, receive GS 11 classifications and salaries of $5,600. When she requests promotion consideration in 1943, her supervisor, a Coast Guard commander who can't break a simple substitution cipher himself, writes in her evaluation, "Mrs. Friedman is an excellent technical assistant, though emotionally unsuited for leadership responsibilities due to her sex." The evaluation recommends no promotion. She remains GS7 until she retires. Meanwhile, William Friedman, her husband and cryptanalytic equal, rises to Chief Cryptanalyst of the U.S. Army, receives the Medal for Merit from President Truman and earns 10, Sanon NNU ALLYBY 1945. SAMEHOUSEHOLD, SAMEEXPERTISE, SAMECONTRIBUTIONS, HEGETSMEDALSANDMILITARYANKEQUIVALENT, SHEGETS 10,000. Annually by 1945. Same household, same expertise, same contributions. Heget's medals and military, rank equivalent. She gets 3,200 and institutional invisibility. And when historians write the story of American code breaking after the war, William Friedman appears in 12 books. Elizabeth appears in 0. Until one historian 30 years later starts asking uncomfortable questions about whose work really broke the Nazi spy networks. April 1944. 2 months before D-Day, Nazi intelligence intercepts Allied naval communications in the English Channel and begins analyzing Allied shipping patterns. If German analysts correctly predict the invasion location from the pattern data, Normandy versus Pas-de-Calais, they can reposition Wehrmacht armored divisions before June 6 and turn D-Day into a massacre. The Abwehr spy network in Spain intercepts a coded British Admiralty message discussing Channel Survey Operations North Sector, which could reveal Normandy as the invasion target if decoded. The message uses a British naval cipher variant that German cryptanalysts at OKW, Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, have been attempting to break for 8 months without success. But the message also transits through South American radio relays, where German agents in Argentina capture it and retransmit to Berlin using their commercial Enigma network. The same network Elizabeth has completely penetrated. She intercepts the retransmission, decodes it within 4 hours, and realizes the message contains Allied shipping survey data for Normandy beaches. More critically, she realizes the Germans have the encrypted original British message and are attempting to break it. She immediately alerts U.S. naval intelligence. The Germans have intelligence that could compromise D-Day, and there's a 72-hour window before their cryptanalysts might succeed in decryption. Naval intelligence conducts an emergency operational security review, identifies the compromised survey data, and implements a deception operation flooding German signals intelligence with false survey reports for Pas-de-Calais. Operation Fortitude South Escalation. German cryptanalysts waste the critical weeks before D-Day analyzing false intelligence, never breaking the original cipher, convinced the invasion will target Pas-de-Calais. On June 6, 1944, Allied forces land at Normandy, facing 6 understrength German divisions, instead of the 12 panzer divisions that would have been there if German intelligence had correctly interpreted the survey data. Post-war analysis estimates D-Day casualties would have been 60% higher if German armored divisions had been pre-positioned at Normandy. Elizabeth's warning prevented that. But Allied command reports credit signals intelligence sources with no names attached. November 1944. The FBI prosecutes 14 German agents arrested through Elizabeth's decryption work in what becomes the largest espionage trial of World War II, United States versus Wilhelm Georg Ritter et al. The trial takes place at Brooklyn Federal Court, lasts 23 days, and features 127 pieces of evidence including decoded Enigma messages, surveillance photographs, and intercepted radio transcripts. The prosecution's case rests entirely on the decoded messages proving the defendants were Nazi agents transmitting military intelligence to Berlin. But there's a problem. Revealing how the messages were decoded means revealing America possesses cryptanalytic capability against commercial Enigma variants. If defense attorneys learn the decryption methods, they'll publicize them, alerting Nazi intelligence that their cipher systems are compromised. Solution: the FBI classifies the decryption methods as sources and methods, top secret, and simply presents the decoded messages as evidence without explaining their origin. Defense attorneys object. How can we verify these translations are accurate without knowing the decryption process? The judge rules. The government has certified these translations. The jury will accept them as accurate. Elizabeth sits in a locked room in the courthouse basement during the 23-day trial, available if the judge orders her to testify as an expert witness. But the FBI successfully argues her testimony isn't necessary because FBI technical experts have verified the translations. She never takes the stand. All 14 defendants are convicted. The FBI receives national press coverage for smashing a major spy ring. Elizabeth receives a letter from the Coast Guard thanking her for administrative support services during the trial, and a $50 war bond, which at the time equals about 2 weeks of her salary. 1945. The war ends. William Friedman receives the Medal for Merit, the highest civilian decoration, from President Truman for exceptional contributions to cryptanalysis that materially aided the Allied victory. Elizabeth receives nothing. No medal, no recognition, no acknowledgement. She retires from the Coast Guard after 27 years of service. Final salary, $3,200. The same salary she earned in 1938. Her pension, $78 monthly. She and William move to Washington, D.C., where he continues working for the newly formed National Security Agency as chief cryptologist. She's prohibited from any intelligence work because NSA policy forbids employing both spouses in classified positions. And since William holds higher rank, Elizabeth is the one who must leave. So at age 54, with 3 decades of cryptanalytic expertise, having broken more enemy codes than any American woman in history, Elizabeth Smith Friedman becomes a housewife. But she can't stop being a cryptanalyst. In 1958, she begins writing a memoir titled The Friedmans, A Cryptologic Partnership, 178 pages documenting her career, the codes she broke, the spy networks she dismantled. She submits it to the NSA for declassification review before publication. The NSA classifies the entire manuscript top secret and prohibits its release for 75 years, until 2033, citing ongoing operational security concerns. The real reason, contained in an internal NSA memo released decades later. Mrs. Friedman's account contradicts official FBI records attributing cryptanalytic breakthroughs to Bureau personnel. Publication would embarrass the FBI and raise uncomfortable questions about credit attribution for wartime intelligence work. So, her memoir goes into classified archives, her story remains untold, and when she dies in 1980 at age 88, her obituary describes her as wife of noted cryptanalyst William Friedman, with no mention of her own work. 1976. James Bamford, a 31-year-old investigative journalist, is researching the history of the National Security Agency for his book, The Puzzle Palace, when he discovers something strange in declassified FBI files. Dozens of espionage cases from World War II where FBI reports credit FBI cryptanalysts with code breaking, but FBI personnel files from that period show the Bureau employed exactly 0 professional cryptanalysts. The FBI had investigators, translators, forensic specialists, but no one with cryptographic training. So who actually broke the codes? Bamford files Freedom of Information Act requests for Coast Guard records, Navy intelligence files, and NSA archives. Most requests are denied, citing national security. But he finds one thread. Multiple FBI cases reference technical assistance from Treasury Department specialists, and the Treasury Department oversaw the Coast Guard, which did employ cryptanalysts. Bamford cross-references trial testimony, interviews retired Coast Guard officers, and finds a name appearing in footnotes and classified memos: Elizebeth Friedman. He contacts her in 1978. She's 86 years old, living in a Washington suburb, and she's shocked someone finally asked. "I signed papers promising never to discuss my work," she tells him. "But I'm old now, and the FBI took credit for decades. I think people should know the truth." She agrees to interviews, provides her personal papers, explains the technical details of her cryptanalysis. Bamford publishes The Puzzle Palace in 1982, 2 years after Elizabeth's death, including a chapter about her work. But most historians miss it. The story is buried in a 600-page book about modern intelligence agencies. It will take another 35 years before someone decides Elizebeth Smith Friedman's story deserves a book of its own. And when that book is finally published, it forces the NSA to confront an uncomfortable truth about how history erased the most prolific female codebreaker of World War II. 2017. Author Jason Fagone publishes The Woman Who Smashed Codes, the first comprehensive biography of Elizabeth Smith Friedman, based on 22,000 pages of declassified documents, her personal archives donated to the George C. Marshall Foundation, and interviews with her surviving family members. The book becomes a New York Times bestseller and wins the Goodreads Choice Award for History. More importantly, it forces American intelligence agencies to confront 70 years of institutional credit theft. The NSA issues a public statement acknowledging Mrs. Friedman's extraordinary contributions to American cryptanalysis were not properly recognized during her lifetime or in the decades following. The FBI, less gracefully, issues no official comment, but quietly updates historical documents on its website to include Elizabeth's name in cases where J. Edgar Hoover had previously taken sole credit. The Coast Guard names a new cutter, the USCGC Elizabeth Friedman, in 2020, the first Coast Guard vessel ever named for a woman cryptanalyst. The National Cryptologic Museum at Fort Meade, Maryland, opens an exhibit about her work featuring original Enigma machines she decrypted, cipher worksheets in her handwriting, and the classified manual she wrote in 1938 that taught 2 generations of codebreakers. But here's what makes the 2017 revelation so significant. Researchers discover that Elizabeth's classified memoir, the one the NSA buried in 1958, contains technical descriptions of cryptanalytic methods the NSA still considers classified in 2017. The agency faces a choice: continue hiding her work to protect outdated secrets, or declassify and acknowledge her achievements. In 2018, the NSA releases 90% of her memoir with minimal redactions. The remaining 10% concerns specific cipher systems, potentially still in use by adversaries. The released pages reveal something stunning. Elizabeth Smith Friedman essentially invented modern signals intelligence as we know it, pioneered techniques every intelligence agency now uses, and did it all while being paid less than male clerks and receiving zero recognition, until 37 years after her death. To understand Elizabeth's achievements, compare her to celebrated male codebreakers. Alan Turing at Bletchley Park broke German military Enigma using the bomb machine, an electromechanical computer that tested 178,000 rotor positions per minute. Turing's breakthrough was engineering, building machines to automate decryption. Elizabeth broke commercial Enigma variants using paper, pencils, and manual frequency analysis. No computers, no machines, just pure mathematical reasoning. William Friedman, her husband, broke Japanese purple cipher in 1940, considered one of cryptanalysis's greatest achievements. He used a team of 12 cryptanalysts working full-time for 18 months with access to IBM punch-card machines for data processing. Elizabeth broke Nazi spy networks using techniques she invented herself, working alone or with one assistant, using handwritten frequency tables she computed personally. Herbert Yardley broke Japanese diplomatic codes in the 1920s, wrote a best-selling book about it in 1931, became famous as the American Black Chamber codebreaker. His actual cryptanalytic output, approximately 300 messages decoded over 8 years. Elizabeth broke 4,019 messages in 6 years, more than 13 times Yardley's output, and couldn't write a book about it because it was classified. The technical sophistication of her work exceeds most recognized male cryptanalysts of the era. She mastered 12 distinct cipher systems. She could decrypt polyalphabetic ciphers in her head, a skill requiring simultaneous tracking of multiple letter frequency distributions. She pioneered cribs, index of coincidence, and pattern recognition techniques that remain fundamental to cryptanalysis today. Yet in 1946, when the U.S. military publishes A History of Army Communications Intelligence, the official chronicle of American cryptanalysis, William Friedman appears 47 times. Elizabeth Friedman appears 0 times. Not once. Her contributions are attributed to Coast Guard technical specialists in passive voice, as if the work happened spontaneously without human agency. Let's quantify the discrimination with hard numbers. In 1945, the U.S. Army employs 2,800 cryptanalysts. 167 are women, all classified as junior cryptanalyst, regardless of experience. Elizabeth has 27 years of professional cryptanalysis at war's end, more experience than 94% of Army cryptanalysts. Her salary: $3,200 ANNUALLY. AVERAGEMALERYPTANALYSTSALARYWITH 27YEARSEXPERIENCE on $3,200 annually. Average male Army cryptanalyst salary with 27 years experience: $200, 125% higher pay for equivalent work. William Friedman earns $10,000 in 1945, adjusted for inflation to $2024. William earned $175,000 annually, while Elizabeth earned $56,000 for comparable work. The pay gap, 68%. But it's not just money. Post-war academic positions. 47 male Army cryptanalysts receive university professorships teaching cryptography, mathematics, or computer science. 0 women receive academic appointments. Universities in 1945 don't hire female professors in mathematics or engineering. Government honors. 28 male cryptanalysts receive Medal for Merit or Legion of Merit between 1945–1950. 0 women receive comparable honors. Elizabeth never receives any military or civilian decoration for her war work. Historical recognition. By 1990, 12 books about World War II cryptanalysis are published. William Friedman appears in 9 of them. Alan Turing in 11. Herbert Yardley in 7. Elizabeth Smith Friedman appears in 1. A footnote in A General History of Coast Guard Operations. The Mathematics of Erasure. Decode 4,019 enemy messages. Prevent dozens of sabotage operations. Dismantle 23 spy networks. Pioneer techniques used by every intelligence agency for the next 80 years, and receive $0 in recognition. 0 medals, 0 mentions in history books, 0 credit for work performed. The equation is simple. Breakthrough cryptanalysis plus female gender equals institutional invisibility. At least until historians finally start asking whose names are missing from the official story. Every time you use encrypted internet banking, send a secure text message, or connect to a VPN, you're using techniques Elizabeth Smith Friedman pioneered. Modern public key cryptography uses different mathematics, but the fundamental concepts, frequency analysis, pattern recognition, known plaintext attacks, all trace back to methods she formalized in the 1930s. The NSA's training program for new cryptanalysts includes her 1938 manual, Methods for the Solution of Running Key Ciphers, as required reading, still relevant 86 years after publication. Computer science courses teaching cryptanalysis reference her work on index of coincidence and cribs. The field of signals intelligence, intercepting enemy communications, analyzing traffic patterns, exploiting operational security failures, exists because Elizabeth pioneered those techniques against Nazi spy networks. Modern SIGINT operations follow procedures she established. When NSA analysts brief Congress on cryptanalytic capabilities, they're describing refinements of methods she invented while earning $3,200 annually. But her legacy extends beyond technical contributions. Her story exposes how institutional sexism erases women's achievements through systematic credit theft, classification of their work, and exclusion from historical narratives. In 2024, women comprise 32% of NSA cryptanalysts, up from 6% in 1945, but still face pay gaps and promotion barriers similar to what Elizabeth experienced. Her story isn't just history. It's a mirror reflecting ongoing struggles for recognition in male-dominated fields. And it proves that even when institutions bury contributions, even when credit is stolen and work is classified, the truth eventually surfaces, sometimes decades late, but inevitable, because eventually someone asks the right questions and refuses to accept the official story. August 2020. The U.S. Coast Guard commissions the USCGC Elizebeth Friedman, a Sentinel-class fast response cutter, hull number WPC 1130, home-ported in San Juan, Puerto Rico. The 154-foot vessel carries a crew of 24, patrols Caribbean waters conducting counter-narcotics operations, and bears the name of the woman who broke codes for the Coast Guard for 27 years without recognition. At the commissioning ceremony, Coast Guard Commandant Admiral Carl Schultz states, "For too long, Elizabeth Friedman's contributions were classified, hidden, and attributed to others. Today we honor her service and ensure her name sails forever in defense of our nation." The cutter's motto, "Silent no more," a direct reference to the decades of forced silence about her work. But here's what makes the naming significant. This is the first military vessel ever named for a cryptanalyst, male or female. Despite William Friedman's greater public recognition during his lifetime, no ship bears his name. Alan Turing has museums and academic prizes. Herbert Yardley has books and films. Elizabeth Smith Friedman has a Coast Guard cutter patrolling the same Caribbean waters where she once tracked Nazi spy networks, breaking codes that protected American shipping lanes. The symbolism is profound. The woman erased from history now has her name permanently painted on a vessel, enforcing the security she helped establish. And every time that cutter intercepts a smuggler or interdicts narcotics traffickers, her legacy continues. Silent work. Critical importance. Recognition delayed but finally received. The question historians now ask: how many other women performed breakthrough work during World War II, received zero credit, died in obscurity, and remain erased from history, because no one asked questions about whose names are missing from the official records? Elizebeth Smith Friedman decoded 4,019 enemy messages, dismantled 23 Nazi spy networks, prevented dozens of sabotage operations, including an attack that would have closed the Panama Canal, contributed to D-Day operational security, testified in 14 espionage trials, pioneered cryptanalytic methods still taught today, and received exactly $0 in recognition, 0 medals, 0 honors during her lifetime. The FBI took credit for her work. J. Edgar Hoover signed his name to reports describing breakthroughs she achieved. Male cryptanalysts with less experience, fewer accomplishments, and inferior technical skills received promotions, decorations, and post-war fame while she remained classified, invisible, erased. But here's the final irony. Institutional erasure is itself a code. And like all codes, it can be broken. James Bamford broke it in 1982 by asking uncomfortable questions about FBI cryptanalysis claims. Jason Fagone broke it in 2017 by researching 22,000 pages of declassified documents. The NSA broke it in 2018 by finally releasing her memoir. And now, 44 years after her death, Elizabeth Smith Friedman has achieved recognition that eluded her entire life. Books, exhibits, a Coast Guard cutter, and a place in history as one of the greatest cryptanalysts America ever produced. The lesson isn't just about one woman's stolen credit. It's about systematic institutional practices that erase contributions, steal recognition, and bury truth under classification stamps and bureaucratic silence. It's about how history gets written by those with power to control narratives, and how long it takes for truth to surface when institutions actively suppress it. Elizebeth Smith Friedman broke unbreakable codes. But the code of institutional sexism that erased her? That took 80 years, multiple historians, declassification laws, and public pressure to finally crack. Her story is a reminder. The hardest codes to break aren't mathematical. They're institutional, social, and political. And sometimes breaking those codes matters more than breaking enemy ciphers. Because without truth, history itself becomes a lie encrypted by those who benefit from silence.